sorry about the disturbance in the back, but yeah, Heart of a Dog, today's film. I don't know if you want to go first about just just your first reaction of what, what the feeling, what the film was like.
Okay. So before I start, how was the screening this afternoon? Did anyone join?
Yeah, we did the whole screening. We started at 2 p.m. and since the film was divided in two parts,
Mm-hmm.
we had a 10-minute break in the middle.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. And then we'll have another screening tomorrow as well for Wing Migration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, about this film, right? So I saw it this week only. I hadn't seen this film earlier. I had read the book, the novella, quite a few years back when I had first read The Master and the Margarita. At that time, I had read this as well. So, but I never knew that this version, this adaptation actually existed. I knew of a Italian adaptation somewhere in the 60s had happened, but that was not up to the mark. But this one is a good adaptation. From the point of view of someone who has actually read the novel, this is a good novel. I mean, decent. I wouldn't say very good or great adaptation, but decent adaptation. It's very faithful. That's one point, that it literally covers everything that's there in the novella very, very religiously. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't add or remove anything, and that kind of becomes a negative point for the film as well, that it just becomes a faithful adaptation. That's all. So, as it starts off really well. I was pretty intrigued by the opening, the point of view of the dog and all that. That is, pretty much picked up from the novella as it is, hasn't been changed. But by the end of it, the film, for me, it was kind of formally drab. So it didn't really leave a mark. So if I had to, I had the option of reading the book again or watching it, I would rather read the book again. So yeah, that's the first impression.
Okay. Kritik, you want to go next?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty great movie, and it had a ton of memorable one-liners that was like really funny and yet also pretty striking. It kind of even it was entertaining, and it kind of critiqued both the sides, but especially one side. And I felt it looked kind of unique, and just the visuals. I don't know uh, if uh, if it's just because it's on sepia or monochromatic sepia, or if it's just like a TV production or something. But it looked really unique to me, and I really liked it.
Okay. Cavalier, you there?
Monster of Frankenstein came into my mind the moment I saw that transformation.
Okay.
So I think that was one of the biggest takeaway for me. I'm not sure whether it was inspired by that or was the Frankenstein's monster inspired by that, but it came into my mind surely, and I think it was very like I would put it in lot more in the sci-fi genre, right? Not in the theme that we are following this month, the animal theme. But yeah, he did had animalistic instinct intact, so that was something. But yeah, I think the one thing that came into my mind was definitely Frankenstein.
Okay. Um, I'll go next. So I found this film to be somewhat of a surprise. I was expecting a very, you know, visually it's black and white sepia tone film, and uh, there's very little use of music, just sporadically here and there. So I was expecting a very dry, experience, but the film is quite funny throughout, beginning to end. There's a lot of humor sprinkled throughout the film, and it's entertaining because it shows you very unexpected points of views um, throughout the film, and then within the humor itself, there are things to ponder about and dig deeper. So yeah, I thought it's better than what I expected it to be. But I also agree with Aruna that it it has a very good momentum in the beginning, and then it loses some of that steam in the last act, especially when once he picks up his position in the municipal corporation. And yeah, from an editing standpoint, maybe it could have been tightened up a little bit, and um, it could, maybe end it at the 2 hour mark or something like that. And yeah, other than that, all the other points will come
I
up
mean,
as we talk about them.
yeah. Were you familiar with the source material? Did you know
No,
the
I
story?
wasn't. I wasn't. No, not at all. I was directly watching the film. In fact, I looked up the source material after Kritik brought it up
Oh, okay.
in the main group.
Hmm. This
So
is not really that well known among Bulgakov's works, his entire over, but it still has a sort of a cult following because of the kind of treatment it got from the Communist Party. Right, it was banned for so many years. Eventually, it was written in 1925 and it was formally published in 1987. And a year after that, this film was made.
could you share a little more about who this author is and why he's got such a following and why this book gained relevance?
Yeah, so Mikhail Bulgakov is he is one of Russia's greatest writers of the 20th century, at least. And why he is so famous, or he has a sort of a cult following, is because he was an iconoclast. He was never on board with socialism. I mean, not exactly socialism, with Bolshevism. The way the Bolshevik Party took over power in 1917, and eventually, after Lenin died in 24, Stalin took over, and we all know what happened after that. He was never on board with all of that, and from the very beginning, his works had that element of satire, making fun of communist ideals, the hypocrisies, the internal contradictions within communism or Bolshevism. So because of that, he was not really liked within the party, and at that point, the party was the state, and the state was everything in Soviet Union. Right, it controlled every aspect of society. So by from the beginning of the 1920s, so he actually was a trained physician. He was a doctor who up till around 1919, I guess. After that, he gave up his medical practice to focus full time on his writing. So he used to write plays, he used to write short novellas, he used to write a lot of things. He used to translate also. So after that, that friction with the party started, and a lot of his works started becoming banned. They used to come, the party members used to come, the cultural committees used to come, they used to confiscate his manuscripts and all of that. So by the end of the 1920s, most of what he had written was either confiscated or banned, and he literally had nowhere to go. So he actually, in frustration, wrote a letter to Stalin saying that either you let me write, either you let me pursue my craft, practice my craft, or you let me emigrate. Then he actually got a phone call from Stalin that, okay. Stalin was actually, he had a sort of a love-hate relationship with him. He loved some of his works, like the White Guard. You might have heard of that novel, which was also adapted into a play, and it's said that Stalin saw that like 15 times while it was playing at the Moscow Art Theater. So even when this kind of censorship was starting, right, in his initial days in the early 20s, 1920 to 23-24 period, uh, Stalin told the cultural committees that he's too great a writer to fit into categories of left or right, right? So they should leave him alone and all of that. And so finally, what happened was he didn't emigrate. He stayed within the Soviet Union. He got a job in one of the smaller theaters in Moscow. Started writing plays for there. He adapted some of Nikolai Gogol's plays like Dead Souls and all of that. And finally, he wrote his masterpiece, The Master and the Margarita. And after that, he was very ill all through his life. He battled a lot of illnesses, and he kind of died in almost anonymity at that point of time. Nobody outside of Moscow sort of knew him, and all of his fame came posthumously about 20, 30 years after he died. So that's about Bulgakov.
And then about this book specifically, or about this story in particular?
This story, this is usually seen as a satire or as a denouncement of Bolshevism or the spirit of the revolution, which took place in 1917, right? And when this was written, this was 1925, so this was the phase where the Bolshevism or the early Bolshevism was kind of transforming into something else. Lenin had died in 1924. Stalin had taken over after that. Not exactly taken over. There were some internal fights between him and Trotsky at that point of time. Eventually, he would take over. But Stalin was effectively the number two under Lenin, right? So, and at that point of time, also the new economic policy had come into being, and in around 1924, when smaller private businesses were being allowed. Not everything that a farmer produced or a businessman produced would have to be given to the state for them to decide what to do with it, but some of it could be kept with the actual producer for his own private profit, right? So at that point of time, and the kind of things that we already know happened started around 1928 to 30s, right? The Stalinist purges, the labor camps, all of that, forced killings, disappearances, all of those kind of started during this period, right? 1924. So looking back with the benefit of hindsight, it's very and it's serves as a form of a warning. It has a very foreboding quality to it. So and it's also a satire of eugenics, right? Eugenics was very much in vogue at that point in history, not only in Russia, in Europe as a whole, right? Physicians, researchers, they all promoted eugenics as something that human kind should aspire towards, right? More so in Russia because of the concept of the new Soviet man, which was coming into vogue. So yeah, that's some of the background.
Since eugenics came up, let's talk about that aspect of the film a little bit. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, eugenics is it stems from Nietzsche's theory of the overman, right?
Übermensch, yes.
Yeah. So, and I'm going back to my school days to remember this. So I might be wrong here. So please correct me if there's a mistake here. That the relation between the great apes and the humans is of 0.1% difference, meaning chimpanzees, our closest relatives, are 99.9% or 99.95% similar to us, or something like that, right? So all the differences, physiological and also intellectual capacity and intelligence and all these things, all come from this 0.1% genetic gap. And the idea of the overman or the Ubermensch was that if that is the next step of evolution, humans are the next step of evolution of chimpanzees, what would be the next step of human evolution be? And that concept was theorized or imagined in the form of this Ubermensch or overman. And some of these political guys, they really took a fascination to this idea in a completely wrong way, and they took it upon themselves that, you know what, if we selectively breed and we cancel out certain,
Yep.
not cancel out, but eliminate
The negative traits. Yeah.
some of the undesirable traits, then maybe we can see the rise of the overman or ubermensch in our lifetime. And that is the basis of this concept called eugenics, that you mess with the biology of a person in order to get results that you imagine or you intend.
Yep.
Is that loosely correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not a science guy at all, so I might be like,
No,
butchering
you don't
this.
need to be a science guy to get the basic idea of it. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's how eugenics came into vogue. And within Russia, after the revolution happened, there was this, like I was saying, the concept of a new Soviet man, right? A human being which espouses the principles, the ideals, the policies of communism, right? A classless society, communal living, all of that, pursuing education, pursuing science, all of that, all of what was considered as desirable by the party. So that's how it came into vogue.
So in this film, the elderly scientist has been on a lifelong mission to find a scientific way to get closer to this concept of Ubermensch or Overman. And it seems that back then in 1910s, when this film is set.
No, this is 1925.
In the film? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1920s then, when this film is set. It seems
25
that they have
specifically. Like
25.
Right after Lenin has died.
Okay. So they don't have an idea what the pituitary gland does in our body. I guess medical science had not uncovered that by then. I don't know. But the big, scientific trick of the film is that he uses the pituitary gland as a as a way to make the transformation happen. And so all his life he's been looking for the solution, and he's been failing at it. And he has a successful clinic. He has a lot of money, as you can tell by his home, but that's from doing cosmetic work for rich people. So so and this experiment, which he thinks will be successful, right, in mixing dogs with humans, he thought maybe this will ignite the next step in evolution, but it doesn't. In fact, it goes horribly wrong.
So the contradiction here is that this guy is not on board with all of this, new Soviet man eugenics, all of that which is being espoused by the government, the party itself. He is doing it from the spirit of science itself.
Scientific research. Yes.
Scientific research, scientific curiosity, all of that. So that's another contradiction at play here.
And I was just about to say that his intentions are noble, but how do you guys feel about the whole experiment, even if it's, like you said, done with noble intentions? The idea of eugenics as a whole, or this specific experiment of modifying biological components to elicit evolution of some capacity. Does that seem wrong, or does that seem just a part of research? There's plenty of films which have covered this. Yeah, Kritika, were you saying something?
Yeah, I don't know. I think pretty much everybody today will be against eugenics or even against the whole idea of kind of breeding or altering humans in any form of way. It's one of the few good things that happened because of uh, 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 all the people don't respect eugenics anymore because the Nazis did it. And even though it was really popular worldwide, and that was pretty scary to think about, that just 100 years ago, people were, forcefully, what do you say, sterilizing people who they deemed unfit or for whatever vague reasons. And it's quite scary to think that, to me at least, that society is so, uh, what do you say, capricious. And but yeah, I mean, today, modern day, it's just we have the benefit of hindsight to say eugenics is wrong. But yeah, that's it.
Forget 100 years ago in India, it was happening in the 70s, right, under Sanjay Gandhi.
But can it be called
No, no, it's
like
not eugenics, just
can it?
sterilization I'm talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
that's like eugenics is a pretty serious term, like targeting a certain group or whatever undesirable. I don't believe that they targeted any kind of specific people, although
No, it's
statistics may say something else.
hmm. It's not really about targeting. It's just selective reproduction, right, which increases certain, you know, quote unquote positive or desirable traits and decreases certain undesirable traits, and ultimately it
Hmm.
will improve the quality of later generations. That's what
I
eugenics.
mean, I feel that's the same. I feel that I said the same thing, but sure.
Hmm.
There's a similar debate circling around stem cells, right? Some people are against stem cell therapy. And,
Hmm. That's a that's a wormhole to get into.
yeah, yeah. And I'm just bringing up a modern example because, uh, like we all agree that, okay, eugenics is a little out of whack, but trying to bring it into modern context. Um, yeah, I mean, stem cells is accepted by most people, but some people are against it. And CRISPR, I think Aruna, you might be familiar with the concept
Yeah,
of CRISPR,
yeah,
right? How
yeah.
about Kaivalya Kritik? Are you guys familiar with CRISPR?
That's the gene editing thing, right?
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that is also done with noble intentions. That, okay, we'll make cancer-proof humans, or we'll make I don't know, malaria-proof humans. But you know, it can also be done, used in nefarious ways. So yeah, um, it's a similar situation, right?
Yeah, I mean it was in vogue until the 1930s, and then the Nazis came, and the way they used it to further the whatever they call the Aryan race. That's how it just got a bad name, and everything kind of was downhill from there. But it was very much in vogue until then.
Hmm. So so how about these modern technologies, which we haven't? I mean, universally, it's not agreed upon or disagreed upon. There is still some debate to be had over there. So there are advantages to both stem cell and CRISPR.
Yeah, I mean, then it's a discussion of regarding the God principle. I mean, the God
Hmm.
complex again, right?
Mhm.
So, how far can human beings go?
Yeah, but
It's that discussion.
what if the
Um,
argument is that it's going to save lives?
Yeah.
Hard to argue with that, right?
just sort of, I'm not aware of what's the controversy behind stem cell therapy. What's wrong with stem cell therapy?
So Stem cell therapy. So it's the controversy. The main controversy is regarding the fetal stem cells, right, which can be taken from aborted babies, which is used for certain stem cell research. So it's kind in the US. It's kind of linked with the right wing, position against abortion. In India, it's a bit different. So that's the main stem or main strain of the entire controversy.
No, there are
So
also
it's-
people who are blanket against all stem cells, not just fetal stem cells, with the same idea that we should not interfere with God's creation and something along those lines.
Yep.
Yeah, Kritik, sorry.
no, I just found a web page on the stem cell controversy. Thanks.
Okay, moving on. So this character of the elderly scientist, right? We follow the first half of the film through his lens, and he's somewhat of a anti-communist character. In second half of the film, we follow it through the human dog person's perspective, and contrast, he's pro communist as such. So, does the politics of the film interfere with your viewing of the film? Does it hinder in your enjoyment of the film in any way? You don't have to, uh, share your political views if you don't want to, but just asking out of curiosity, since we have this left and right thing going on in the film, does one half of the film seem less enjoyable because it, it doesn't align with what you would what you would find agreeable in any way?
It's like what we see in movies nowadays. Like they show good people and bad people from belonging to same community in the same film, right? So over here they didn't show the good people from the same community. So yeah, it seems a little bit like propaganda piece, but it doesn't really affect me because uh, honestly, we all are smart enough to understand that at the end of the day, every ideology, people follow that ideology thinking that there is some good in it, and there is always some good in it. Now, no ideology is perfect. Again, that is another thing. So it does not really affect. I mean, over here they just took the bad part of a particular of these communist people, and they just showed the bad part of the communist people. Again, the person, I think, like Aruno said, it's adaptation. So maybe the material was like that, and that is one of the reason why they chose to stick with just one part of it. Or maybe the maker was really upset with something, and that is why he was trying to make a political statement. Nevertheless, we should also understand this, that in a movie, like, we always have a villain, right? If a villain belongs to a certain caste or a certain religion, it doesn't mean that everybody from that caste or religion is bad, right? So if you keep that in the mind and just enjoy it as it is supposed to be enjoyed, then this type of political statements really do not hamper your enjoyment process. That is my take on it.
Yeah, I felt that most of what was said, at least, was true in a way. I mean, although it's a constructed kind of narrative in itself, a lot of the criticisms are true. But that doesn't mean it's not a dishonest film. That's what I was trying to say. So it was pretty enjoyable and true.
What do you mean by dishonest film?
Uh, that's setting up these kind of false arguments or false terms and creating what do you say, stereotypes or
They do some of that, right?
I mean, this
With
one is,
the housing management committee.
but he is a stereotype. That is true,
Mm.
but it doesn't. And it both of them are, kind of exaggerated. Whatever kind of qualities they're trying to satirize, but I'm trying to trying to define like what I mean by dishonest film. It's not like insulting or belittling, at least the viewer, not the character. Also, it's I can say it's drawn for something real.
Okay. Okay.
Very suspicious. Okay.
No. I'm just trying to keep the discussion alive. So I'm thinking, well, what should go next?
I was, there's I just want to bring this up thing.
Sure.
When there's a Frankenstein thing as going on, uh, but this is probably not this. I was thinking of Voodoo saved from drowning for some reason, especially during the second part. It's definitely not like probably intended by the writer, but
Yeah, he also
seeing.
causes a ruckus in the town, and yeah.
Yeah, he creates a ruckus in the house, and they try to intellectualize him or bring them up to their level and whatnot. Well, yeah. So that's why I was constantly thinking about this. Criticism goes both ways uh, uh, with regards to this movie.
Okay, since you brought up um, this point about this dog human character creating ruckus in the town. Before I proceed, I don't know, did you have something to add on what we were discussing, or?
No, nothing much. Just regarding the exaggerations, right? So everything
Uh-huh.
is kind of willfully exaggerated here. That's the nature of the novella. That's how he, that's how he brings satire into the whole thing. So right from the all of the characters, the housing committee chief and the kind of patients that visit the doctor, even the operation, right? It's exaggerated, right? That's not something that ever happened anywhere, right? You take the testicles from a man and the pituitary gland, and you just put it into a dog, and it'll transform into a human. That never happened. It's all exaggeration. So it's all satire. It's all symbolic. It's all serving as an allegory, right? It's just it, what Bulgakov always thought was that the entire idea of radically transforming society or mankind or human nature as a whole, which is kind of the guiding principle of communism or any kind of leftist uh, party or government, right? So that itself is flawed. That has internal contradictions, which is what he's trying to portray here. Yeah, that's all.
Also, one more thing I would like to add here. Matlab, over here, they have shown that the housing committee is like, trying to infringe on the rights. But it doesn't have to be like, oh, they are communists, that's why they are doing. Even capitalist people do this type of things. So I think it's a less on that thing and a lot more like that sometimes government goes out of the bounds, or the people who have the powers bestowed upon them, they misuse their power. So I think that was the motive over there.
That's
Huh.
actually a very good point, because in the film, there is a subtext about how power corrupts people, right? It, you can see that in the case of the doctor. You can see that in the case of his patient, and also these young housing committee people, and all this dog human person. Uh, yeah, they're all vying for more and more control and more power, just to do their bidding, what do what they really want.
Yeah, I mean, when the state is all powerful, right? Everyone will try to just ingratiate themselves with officials, with some apparatchik of the state to just get some part of that power to exercise on his or her fellow citizens, right? And the housing committee, that part, I think that's more of, poking fun into the corruption within the party, right? So they tell them that you can't have 7 rooms and all of that. You can't live so lavishly where others have like 1 or 2 rooms. 32 square feet or something was the was something that guy was talking about, right? I forgot his name. What's Shadikov. So yeah, that's more poking fun at the corruption within the party itself, right? He just picks up a phone and calls up some party official and tells him that I'll stop your operations and all of that. And this guy just tells the committee head to back off, right? So
Yeah, and
it's
the
more
officer protects him because he needs that
yes,
medical treatment.
yes,
So he's willing to protect him from the consequences of whatever the laws are of
Actually,
that
not
time.
even need. Actually, not even need. He wants them because he is doing mostly cosmetic surgery.
Hmm.
not just
Okay.
cosmetic surgery, I mean, just really whack surgeries, right? There is one woman who comes in the beginning, right? And he says, I'll implant some monkey's ovaries into you and all that.
That
Was it
was
monkey
really crazy.
frogs?
I hope that I don't know what he's been doing in his clinic.
These are all just willfully exaggerated. Nothing like of this sort happened, of course. It's just showing.
But it was
Actually,
quite
just another
shocking to see
thing.
that in the start of the film because it was normal, normal, normal. There's that dog's voiceover, but seeing monkeys over here out of nowhere was like a great start.
Also, it is also possible that maybe he is actually doing some operations for the militia itself, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The kind of money he's charging and all of that, it's quite obvious that only the elite section of society can afford his services.
And to be a devil's advocate for a moment, the housing committee, I mean, sure their actions are very, brandish and uncouth, but what they're getting at is not entirely wrong either, or in certain respects also, because let's assume that there is limited resources of any kind. In this case, housing. Let's say there are 100 rooms in a given neighborhood, and this one person is taking up 7. I'm going with the assumption that everyone is renting apartments, not nobody's buying the property. Uh, so should some people go homeless so that he can have a dining room? That is
Yeah,
also an argument to be had.
yeah, yeah. Classic socialism capitalism debate.
Hmm.
So his argument is that I'm doing, such a great service to humanity, to science itself, that I deserve it. I need a study. I need a surgical room. I need this. I need that.
Hmm. Yeah, I one thing I noticed, a, a lot of these power hungry people, they have this entitlement at the root of uh, their corruption,
Hmm.
right? Like you said, the doctor deserves to have a separate dining hall and a separate clinic.
Yep.
Uh, then this officer, he deserves to have whatever cosmetic procedure he wants. Then uh, this housing committee gang, uh, because the law says so, they feel completely entitled to go lead by the letter of the law and not by the spirit of the law.
Yep.
So, and especially I don't know about Russia, but in India, the laws are written so vague that the interpretation is very wide, and that gives a lot of authority to either officials or uh, law enforcement to
Yep.
stretch the boundaries of that law. So, and this guy, this dog human character, the only reason he joins um, the municipal uh, department is to get rid of cats. He's got
Yes.
an inherent hatred for cats. So he's entitled that once I do this officially, then nobody can question me. If I do it as a citizen, I'll go to jail. So
No, not just that, right? So in any society where the ruling party or whatever ruling government structure is there that wields disproportionate amount of power, right? Citizens will try to uh, you know uh, get into certain roles which give them certain or some small share of that power, right? Why do you think IAS, IPS, all of these things are so craved in India? Because we know the state is all powerful, state wields so much power over us that once you get into that position you can wield that power.
and wield that power for a lot larger tenure than an average politician.
Yeah.
so what drives people to these roles? I mean, why? I mean, obviously power, but why this inherent, how do I say this, desire for power and control?
So there are certain sociopathic traits associated with it. There was one very famous neuroscientist, I forgot his name. He had this study done, and his entire thing is that most successful politicians, successful entrepreneurs, and one other category he says, these are all sociopaths. They have certain sociopathic bent in them, which kind of drives them towards power or towards seeking power.
There was also the Stanford prison thing, right?
Ah, yes,
Was
that's
that
another
debunked
story.
or is it still
No,
considered?
it's still considered.
Okay. So,
I think, oh, they say now with power you can get away with a lot of things, right?
hmm,
And everybody wants to enjoy their life, bluntly speaking, right?
hmm.
So the more power you accumulate, the more chances are that you would be able to enjoy everything and get away with it. Like for
Yeah.
example, suppose the limit or the loudspeaker is 10 p.m., right? At least in Mumbai it is 10 p.m. So now if you have the power, you can just keep on blaring it till 12 p.m. and if someone comes and if you are in power, you can just dismiss them, or you can just say, okay, okay, we will close and you just move on, right? So that is something. This is a very small example, but these small perks are one of the major reasons. And once you start, okay, misusing your power, then obviously, power corrupts and this type of things happen, right? So I think that is one thing. With power, all the enjoy or not enjoyment of privileges, but it's more like people respect only those who have power with them, right? People do not respect someone who is an ideologue as much as a person who has power and has no idea, no, this things to govern his life, right? If he has power, people will respect him a lot more than an ideologue person. So that is why power is considered to be something that to aspire to have, right? So it's a societal thing. Everybody wants to be in power. Everybody wants to chase after power.
Why do you feel power is necessary to gain respect?
No, I'm just saying in general. If you have like two people, right? One whom you really like, whom you really admire, but that person might not be able to affect your life. He does not have that much power on your life. And then there is other person whom you hate, whom you despise, but he has the power to actually make or break your life. Obviously you will vacate your seat for the person with the power and not the person whom you admire. So that is what I was saying. Like uh, with power, it's not truly respect. It's maybe fear or something. But people with power are usually get better things, better stuff than person with no power, and that is why everybody aspire to get that power. And once you get that power, okay, someone else has more power than you. So you will try to climb one more step. So that's what I was trying to say. Not exactly respect. Respect was probably the wrong word. But yeah, people with power usually get a lot more things done, and people usually make it easy for them. Oh, he has a lot of power over me. Let's not confront him. Let's let him do whatever he wants to do. Why should we get into trouble with this guy? So that is what happens. So that is one of the reasons why everybody wants power.
are people driven to power simply for material comforts, and also, like you said, I'm struggling to recollect the word, but uh, to have no consequences for their actions.
Yeah, I would say so. Not just for material comforts. I mean, I have grown up in Bengal, right, under communist rule. There were people, there were leaders who led very austere lives, right? They had no material pretensions, they had no cars, no big houses, and all of that. But they wouldn't leave their posts, they wouldn't leave their positions within the party, within the government. They just needed that power. They just wanted to wield that power, to have that power over their fellow citizens, to shape the fates of other individuals. That's a power trip.
So they want power to have influence
Yes.
in the community,
Yeah.
not to have um,
There's some people.
legal. What's the word for it? Can you help me? To to not have any repercussions from the law.
Impunity.
Impunity or indemnity.
Impunity.
Impunity. Yeah. Correct. Thanks. So yeah, not just for impunity from the law.
Yep. So one type of people, they would go into it for the material comforts, the power, whatever. So the aspiring civil servants, anyone you talk to, you ask them, why do you want to become, or why do you want to crack UPSC or become a civil servant, or even a state civil services examination? Right? Everyone will tell you that I want to do, I want to better the lives of people, I want to serve society, and all that buncombe. But ultimately, if you ask them, it's all because of that lal batti, right? So that's just basic human nature.
So the special treatment of being a VIP.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to the film, we were talking about how this dog human character hates cats, and in fact that one of the things he manages to find a girlfriend, right? And one of the things he tells her that I'm a good guy. I do a lot of this and a lot of that and a lot of social good, but my only thing is I hate cats. And she weighs her options, and she decides that okay, that's fine. But is that an acceptable excuse for a good person, that I'm good 90% of the time, except when it comes to this um, particular demographic, cats in this case? Do you guys find that acceptable, or is that hypocrisy still? That the person is doing all kinds of charity, but in somewhere in there is also a seed of hatred. Yeah, Kritik.
Yeah, I think I'll have to just agree that it's kind of hypocrisy, but feel rather awkward making these rather judgments on others' value. Perhaps that's it.
I didn't quite get what you mean. Could you
I
elaborate,
feel
please?
rather, it is quite obviously a hypocrisy. It's there in the sentence itself with that but. Uh, but I feel rather awkward, kind of making judgments on uh, on such kind of broad, expansive topics, which is which has been the discussion for the past couple of questions at least.
No, it's not a judgment thing. It's just trying to get opinions on the matter and understand why, uh, where does that opinion come from. So it's open for discussion. We're not doing any left or right thing over here. We just trying to understand the nature of corruption, the nature of power, and right now we're looking at what constitutes a person to be good. Because according to the dog human, he's a good person, but he hates cats. That is the asterisk fine print in his bio.
I think the dog person was clearly lying because he used to steal, right? He stole from the doctor. He stole from the even the housing committee. So he used to steal, and deep down he actually likes to murder cats. So he's just saying them. He's just saying that typewriter something because of which she would not go suspicious of him. Like, okay, I hate cats. Now, I hate cats ka matlab, does not mean that I kill cats. It's a different thing to hate cat because of personal preference. Oh, a cat. Oh, I will not go over there. Oh, I would not pet that cat. I would stay away from that cat. And killing that cat with your bare hands. Now, that is a different thing also, right?
But he
So
kills
that is
those
something.
cats.
And another thing is, yeah, he told that I strangle the cats. He told no in the movie. He
Yeah,
told in the
strangle
movie.
cats, like, wrestle with the cat just to, put it in the van. But once they reach the animal shelter, he does kill them, because the older professor asked him, "What's the point of going after all these cats? What do you do with them?" And he said, "We make cheap coats out of them." He uses the fur to make coats for
Mhm.
poor people. So again,
Yeah,
his intention is noble, that we are getting rid of a pest problem, and we're providing cheap coats to people who could not afford them.
see, that
So
is the thing, na? Like you told that, okay, you want to do something, you want to fight criminals, but if you fight the criminals while not being a member of law and order, then you are being a vigilante, which means you yourself are committing crime. But if you are a member of law and order, then you are actually not committing a crime. Technically, you are maintaining law and order. So it's the same thing with that. What the point that I was coming to was that that guy was clearly lying to her because he also threatened the typewriter that if you do not agree, then I will ensure that you will get fired. He also threatened her. So the thing is that it's most likely that she was like, okay, if I do not accept this guy's proposal, the thing is that he already is a party member. So he would not only just fire me like he's threatening me, but he will also make sure that I do not get job anywhere else because apparently now I do not know about the Russia during 1925. So, but yeah, I think she will have no other option to earn money, right? So that is also one more thing. And also there is one more thing that I noticed. Again, this is a little bit off topic, but in the start of the movie, this is the same woman who feeds the dog, if you remember correctly.
yes, same person,
Yeah. So
same.
maybe that is the reason why he had affection for her, and that is why he's targeting her. Because
Yeah,
if you see the growth of this you know man after the dog after the operation, he's like growing like a teenager, right? His behavior is absolutely similar to how teenagers behave in a way, right? If you want something, you would do everything by hook or crook. I want this thing. That is the mentality of a teenager, right? So I think it's a more with that. But yeah, obviously, if you are being a bigot about something, then you cannot be a good guy. If you have preconceived prejudice about a entire group of people without anything, then obviously they are bad guys. But in this case, he's more of a he's being a manipulator and he's manipulating things. Obviously, the woman must have gotten an idea that he's threatening my this thing also, and he's like, okay, I'm good. Well, he might be what to know. Or at the end of the day, there is also social security. So there are multiple things. Rejecting has a lot more consequences than accepting, at least at this point of time for the woman. So that is why she might have accepted. So I think that is a different thing altogether. And as far as if a person says that I am okay with every word, but this is the only thing, then it depends. If the person is being bigoted, prejudiced, or he's saying that okay, I do not like them, so I maintain a distance from them. Maintaining a distance from someone is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because a lot of people do that. Okay, I'm having a trouble with this guy. Okay, you know what? I do not want to talk with this guy. But if a person actively trying to cause harm to that person, then that is the wrong thing, in my opinion. Maintaining a distance from an entire community might seem wrong, but if it gives him a peace of mind, and if he's not doing anything bad to the community, I do not think that that is a bad thing to do. So again, that is the original answer to your original question.
By the way, the professor also has a blanket. Sorry about that. the professor also has a blanket hatred for all communists together, right? So he's also in that zone that he seems to be a good guy. He's trying to do good work, but he has a distaste for category XYZ of people. But the difference is he still entertains those people when they come to the clinic or in his personal life, if he happens to know them. It's just the ideology that he doesn't agree with. Whereas for the dog human, he specifically seeks power to get rid of cats. Like you said, once he's a part of law enforcement, it's more acceptable for him to do those things. Kritik, yeah, you're saying something?
Yeah, but I perceived it that it probably his whatever disagreement went deeper, was far more deeper than an ideological difference, because he seems he was accused, and he himself admits that he hates the proletariat. So there's maybe a kind of class angle also over there, because he didn't seem to have any problems with the higher up who came to his house also. But maybe that's again, a case of respecting power. But yeah, I thought it was more of a class element.
You're right. There's definitely a class element, and the higher official is providing him with protection. The silly certificates which they go back and forth like playing cards, that I have this certificate which protects me, and then he says no, that certificate is invalidated due to so and so meeting in the next month. Then they keep showing certificates to each other. So yeah, the higher up provides him one of those certificates that you cannot be evicted out of this lavish apartment that you own.
It's like how we hate corrupt people, but sometimes we have no choice but and to work with them to get things done.
And speaking of corruption, they also hint at how corruption only lasts until the people have some use to them. For example, this guy, he was using corruption to protect his apartment, but as soon as the surgery was done, uh, who's the housing committee guy, he was able to come back with a new letter with the dog person's testimony to get him into trouble. And the officer himself came down to his clinic saying that, look, this is what we have against you. So maybe there's some of that in the film also, that corrupt people only entertain each other as long as there is some mutual benefit from uh, from that setup. And once that benefit ceases to exist, uh, hands are off and everyone is on their own. Then there's also this curious nature versus nurture thing going on in the film. I'm sure you guys have noticed that he takes a dog from the streets, and then he uses the dead body of some criminal, right? And the criminal is said to have violent tendencies, and the criminal is said to have I don't know, do you remember what else the criminal was characterized as? uh, some brawl in a bar, I think.
He had an enlarged liver and also like a
Yeah,
drunk.
drinking a lot. Yeah, so alcohol addiction.
Yeah,
Then
that this is a very subtle, not subtle, overt hint there. So I
yeah,
think the name is Chugunkin or something, and
okay,
Chugun means cast iron,
okay.
and Stalin. The name Stalin comes from Stal, right? Stal means steel, so
Hmm.
there is some correction there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Okay. Uh-huh. So instead of steel, they're going with iron. Okay.
Yeah.
And they implement uh, the dog's some part of the dog into this dead body, and yeah. So this is a ship of Theseus equation, right? At what part, when does the dog end and the human begin? And but more interesting than that, eh, whatever behavior issues that we see in this person, um, should that be attributed to the dead body, or should that be attributed to the dog? So, is the dog inherently violent, or was the human inherently violent? Uh, then,
I think in the movie they have basically shown exactly that it was the pituitary gland of that human being that was causing all the changes. Because once the dog again converts back to the dog, you see he again starts thinking the same way how the dog was thinking earlier, right? So he again his thinking process again reverts back to the thinking process that he had as a dog. So I think at least in this movie, it has been clearly shown that it was because of the pituitary gland. And the doctor himself says that okay, the realization that you came to today, I had came that 10 days post the surgery. That this is this is going to be a bad thing, and now we have made our bed, and now we'll have to live with it. So again, the basically the surgeon had noticed this thing earlier only, that okay, he's behaving like this, and he's most likely going to be just like that person. And he also points out again, like his behavior is absolutely similar to the behavior of the man whose pituitary gland they have used over it. So I think it is clearly like it is made absolutely clear that it was the pituitary gland because of which the dog was behaving like it. If the pituitary gland of another good person was inserted in the dog, maybe the dog would have a different behavior.
well, that is not a fact. It's just an excuse used in the film to tell the story.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I am saying that
So
what they have shown in the film from that, this is the only conclusion that in this particular universe,
no. It's a
it
little
is
more
not.
complex. That's what I'm trying to reach. That it's not just that okay, this pituitary gland is here, so the behavior will alter the same way because the dead body was also charged as being counter-revolutionary, if I'm not wrong, right? Which is basically as good as anti-national, as we call it in India, if I'm not wrong. Then when this dog person comes to life, he becomes a full-blown communist, right?
Wasn't he said? I remember it as, although not a member of the party, he had a sympathizer tendency. That was what they said, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right. He was a sympathizer of the party.
Really, I thought he was
Yeah,
counter-revolutionary.
he was charged with battery and stuff because he used to get drunk and he used to be rowdy. So
Hmm.
so that he was charged with that. In fact, there is also the statement now that origin, he was let go once because of his origin, and then the doctor also says, "Oh, but your origin, that is that you have bad blood. I have a bad blood. We will not get away with it so easily." So I think the guy was indeed a sympathizer of the party. Maybe he didn't got the opportunity to join the party back then, but in the dog's body, the pituitary gland and the personality that came, it got the opportunity to join the party.
I think you raised, it's an interesting question which Vivek raised, like how much is dog there and how much is human there. But he did mention in the start also. I'm just trying to play by the rules which at least the story has set. He did mention that the pituitary gland only affects the appearance of the thing. I mean, it's not true in any sense, but if you play by those rules, I mean, perhaps it's trying to provide like a story of of what is a person is born as an adult and they try to use the what uh, selfishly use the system to their benefit.
I just looked at the movie again. and it says this dead guy, 25 years old, single, not a party member, sympathizer. Uh, so he was not a sympathizer. I don't know. Do you remember anything from the book?
Yeah, he was either a party member or a sympathizer. I mean, of course, a communist. That much I'm sure.
He was not. At least in the. I just went back to that scene of the
He
film.
was. Oh, okay. 1 second. Look
Or
at
maybe
it.
my subtitles are not accurate.
No, no. See,
What
actually,
did it
when we saw
say
the
again?
scene, the delivery was this, that he was not a party member, a sympathizer. The delivery is in that manner that it means that though he is not an official member, he was actually a sympathizer of the party.
Yeah. Anyways, regardless whether he was sympathizer or not, in before the second part of the film begins, it seems he doesn't speak much, right? Like he can't speak very much, and once he can speak, that's when he starts spending more time with the housing committee, and they give him books to read, and uh,
Oh, by the way, did you notice the first song that he sings while playing that musical instrument? It
yeah.
is about gouging the eye of the Burgoyes or whatever the word is.
Good job.
What is that? I didn't understand what he's saying.
It's a revolutionary song about
Okay.
crushing the bourgeois and all that.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's why the doctor faints, right? He wants to get
Yeah.
out of that embarrassing situation.
Yeah.
Uh,
He
But
starts reading the correspondences between Engels and Kautsky and all that.
right. Yeah, and also the committee guys, they also spend a lot of time with him, teaching him, getting him up to speed with the current era politics. So
That's where, I mean,
No, no. See, the thing is, the community got the access to this person. How this person started talking with the community after that incident. No, before that incident, he was always in the house only. And the first word that he utters, the first song that he sings, is against the this particular thing. So that was the thing. It just struck me right now that he already had this thing in his mind.
that's what I mean. That's the satire he's aiming towards, right? There's a discussion between these two people, Bormenthal and the doctor, right? His associate and the doctor. They talk about. Bormenthal talks about. I mean, I wonder or I fear what this document will turn into if that housing committee character and they, keep mingling, right? And the doctor says that you realize that now. I realized it 10 days after the operation. And my only comfort is that this guy, the housing committee head, is the biggest fool of all, right? He doesn't realize that this Sharikov is more of a threat to him than he is to me. At the moment, he is doing everything that he can do to turn Sharikov against the doctor, not realizing that if someone in turns, sets him um, uh, against that housing committee head, there'll be nothing left of him. It's all again, kind of a satire of what happens when power falls in the wrong hands.
yeah, I thought he was kind of a mercenary kind of guy, just doing what it takes to
Yeah,
whatever gives him an advantage.
yeah,
And even he was kind of fooling borrowing money, stealing stuff from the
yeah, everything.
committee.
He's just evil in every way, right?
Yeah, so I do agree, but so yeah, I don't know whether he's. I don't want to say he has inherited any of the qualities from the dog or the man, but even though the monologues of the dog in the beginning,
Hmm,
they eerily sound exactly like what the doctor says.
hmm.
Like I don't like the proletariat;
Yeah,
they disgust me and whatnot. But yeah,
that's another theme of it all, right? It's kind of intentionally kept vague, and that's what it's trying to say, right? What the result will be of such this kind of radical engineering, we don't know what the product will come out of it. That's the warning.
yeah, it does motivate this kind of grab it from uh, others kind of mentality. But
So how much of the dog was truly in this person? Because the cat's thing is definitely a dog
Mm.
instinct, right?
Yeah, that's kind of left to the viewer's imagination, right? How do you want to interpret it?
And
There's also.
Kaivalya said
Mm.
uh, that he remembers the girl who fed him, so he's in love with her.
Mm.
That also aligns with that view. That
Yeah.
he does seem to remember things.
So there is
I
that
think
question of
I
human
think this
versus.
was, yeah. Sorry, you continue, Arun.
No, 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 go ahead. Go ahead.
So I was just thinking that this is a classic this thing, na? That few times, few things we think from the heart, or few times we think from the brain, sort of thing. So anything that is emotional is sort of the dog, heart of the dog, right? Anything that is emotional is from his heart, like his hatred towards the cat or his love towards the woman, you know. But anything that is like ideology or anything which is related to brain, it's probably from the man's perspective. That is something that we can come to in conclusion, but then again there are loopholes in this also.
Yeah, how much of this is biological and how much of this is something that he learns from the world, right? So whether spending time with the housing committee or just by seeing how other people act and react, and because the friends that he brings home, right, from the bar, they're all slobs. They're not taking care of themselves and dirty clothes and drinking at wrong times of the day. So that's his influence. Those are the people he hangs out with. So is that why his behavior is so unruly? Then he also tries to molest the housekeeper's daughter, right? No, I forgot her name, Zina. And earlier in the film, there is a scene where the uh, mother housekeeper, the older housekeeper, she seems to be having an affair with one of the doctor's patients. When they're in the kitchen and that guy uh, plays with her, and the dog is in the same room looking at them. So he's recollect. The dog thinks that okay, maybe this is positive behavior, and this is what uh, this is how you communicate affections. So when he gets into the human form, he tries that with the housekeeper's daughter, and it has great repercussions. So he's just repeating what he saw. So, and a dog's mind, as they say, is the mind of a child, and that's what children also do, right? They copy whatever they've seen from grown-ups to, or from their favorite cartoon characters on TV. Whatever they've seen, they replicate, and that's how they form their behaviors. So yeah, there's this interesting question: how much of this is
Yeah, yeah.
nature, biological, and how much of this is nurture, which is
That,
learning
that
by experience?
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that particular scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking why this scene is slightly out of place in the film. So the second time I saw it, I was trying to see why would the director put the scene here. So then it made sense when the midnight drunk molestation thing happened, and they tried to kick him out of the house and all that. So yeah, are there any other points that we need to?
that's a interesting point. And even it was kind of echoed in the start, where I think one of the young housekeepers, she said, "You start feeding him at the table, and he's never gonna leave." And in fact, he does everything in his power to not leave from the doctor's house.
Yeah, yeah. When the doctor says that I would find a place for you, he says I am not a fool to leave this place.
I'm trying to. Do you guys have anything to say about the whole nature versus nurture argument, or should we move on?
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing, but I don't have anything to add.
Hmm.
Honestly,
That is
honestly, I
also tied
think
to eugenics in a way, right? Because according to eugenics, it's your genetics which decides how intelligent you'll be, or uh, what kind of a person you'll be. Whereas uh, now it is common knowledge that the education you have, the company you keep, and the things you do and your experiences shape who you are. So, so yeah, then I guess that argument was put in there for eugenics as a commentary on eugenics. Kaivalli, are you saying something?
I was just saying that in this movie, quite frankly speaking, we never see a lot of nurturing happening, right? We only see him reading the books that were given to him by the people. But then again,
No,
it is already implicated that in his before the man died, he was already a sympathizer. So it is already possible that because of that inclination, he actively sought for that thing. So I
yeah.
think that the nurturing part is missing in this one. I
No,
felt.
no. Nurture doesn't mean you sit down and care for someone and you spoon feed them things. That's not the meaning. Anything that is acquired, uh, any traits that are acquired
Yeah. You
outside
mean
of
to
your
say this, no,
genetics.
experience and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right?
Correct,
But
correct.
again, that is what I'm saying. No,
That's there.
we
Oh.
do not actually know. See now, like you said, that he goes to a bar, he moves, he stays with the very drunk and rowdy people. He bring him them, and maybe that is the reason why he is also himself drunk and rowdy. But again, before dying, he was already drunk and rowdy. So it is also possible that it was his nature, and that is why he actively sought out people to drink with, to be rowdy with. So again, that is the again question. So I think in this particular movie, there is no showcase of nurturing happening throughout, except maybe for the dog part. There might be few things about nurturing, but even then also, I'm not 100% sure that there is enough thing in the movie to actually discuss about nurturing and nature, nurture versus nature because of that reason. Because we do not actively see scenes where someone is trying to, except for that one dinner table scene, I think, you know they try to do, give him, okay, wear this, okay, do this, you have to put the napkin or else we will not give you food, you cannot smoke, you cannot do, but irrespective of that he does that. So again, but then again, even in teenagers we see this thing. So we do not actually know, there are not enough scenes to show that there was a nurturing, there was an effect of the this interactions with other on himself, or the already the because of the pituitary gland he inherited few natures, and because of that his interactions were like that. So I think in this particular case it becomes really hard. Again, there are also again this thing now that, like for example, it is one of the most easiest argument that most people give is, if there are two people who live in who are given identical things, sometimes despite of them being in the identical situations, identical treatment being given to them, identical resources being allocated to them, people choose different ways, people choose different path to move forward, right? So in that case, what is the thing? So if it was something like that, if there were something to compare with, it would have become a lot more easier to make an argument for nurture versus nature. That is what I think, because this is an argument which is really going to go away anywhere. We still do not know that why a person who goes through the same process like some other person do not choose to react in the same manner that other person reacts.
One interesting side thing. There was I talked about this nature thing, and there was one line which suddenly I remembered. Where I think the doctor's assistant said, "Supposing the brain had been from Spinoza or something," and so perhaps they are. And I continued checking what was said after it, and at least the movie goes into the this thing is that uh, yes, but who is he? He is Klim Chugunkin. So perhaps the movie is kind of spelling out for us that it is the nature of the man which has prevailed in the creature.
I think the argument that Vivek was making was that during that time eugenics was very popular. So maybe this was put in because of that reason. But was nurturing also involved over here? So the question is not what the movie is asking, but in general from the movie, do you get anything about a nurture and nature thing? That was the question that Vivek was asking. Obviously, now if the source material is such old, during which time eugenics was considered to be a lot more stronger, then the source material would obviously favor something like that. And it does talk about eugenics, no?
So yeah, I was just trying to say, Polygraphovich, is that his name? I don't remember it,
Yeah.
but he inherited Chigunkin's this thing more characteristics, Chigunkin's nature, if you will.
Yeah, so Kaivalya and Kritik, you guys believe that a lot of that personality is passed on genetically, is it?
No, I don't
No?
believe that. I mean, I didn't ever say that, but
Okay.
I
In in
I'm
this
just trying
movie,
to
Yeah,
say
yeah, in
with
this movie,
in
no,
the
not
context of the movie
in the
film, at
movie,
least.
in the movie. Yeah.
From straight up from the dialogue they do and call him a scoundrel who is this bit image of this thing. He looks like him and he behaves like him, so he is Klim
yeah,
Chugunkin.
yeah, yeah. In this movie, they have basically made it very clear, in my opinion. Just the fact that post the removal of the pituitary gland, once he reverts back to dog again, he does not he neither remembers anything, despite of the fact that pituitary gland does not affect your brain, right? So it is a different function. So despite of that, the dog does not remember anything, or the dog does not have even a single fraction of uh, that personality that he had developed as a human being post the pituitary gland in operation. He does not retain any single, or at least in whatever is being shown, he does not have anything about that. He does not remember, recall. He does not show any signs of his human nature after returning back to the dog. So I think that nature was completely. I mean, in this particular the movie, the personality was completely because of that pituitary gland. Once the pituitary gland was removed, the personality went away from the dog's body. That is in the movie. In real life now, again, that is something that even I am in a dilemma. Like even I am not sure if it is the nurture or the nature.
So when this dog human, at least the first early moments, he retains a lot of dog like tendencies and behaviors also, right? In fact, the words he chooses are also very dog specific. When he gets locked in the bathroom, he says, uh, because the cat destroyed the light bulb, I can't see my paws anymore. Uh, and so, and also while eating, right? You guys remember when he eats quite haphazardly, and these guys do their best to teach him some table manners, and he basically mocks them, saying that why are you guys so stiff and formal the whole time? Why aren't you more natural? And over the last century, we've increasingly seen the cultural shift towards more casual, right? If you look at pictures from late 1800s or early 1900s, everybody's dressed in a suit and tie and top hat and all that, and now it's quite acceptable for you to wear a hoodie to work. So overall, we're moving to a more casual culture, which is similar to what this guy is talking about, right? What's the point of being so stiff and formal? You guys are just Uh, um, does he use the word circus? I don't remember, but he does mock them for all the formal processes. Now, the discussion I wanted to bring in context of this is, um, it seems that there is one defining difference between humans and animals, at least the brains of humans and animals, that we have the ability for impulse control, and and uh, in many animals that is simply not the case. So maybe
I
there's
think
some.
I think the rats would definitely disagree with that, because if you see, the rat usually find a way to avoid the trap and eat the stuff. If you see, there are very few instances when you catch the rat immediately. That is
Hmm,
something that I've seen. I think this impulse thing to me, but yeah,
hmm,
you can talk about this thing that maybe manners and formality and stuff. Maybe that
hmm,
is missing, but we do not know about the impulse thing, because see, impulsively, though we can see a lot of things, right? A dog has an impulse to bark, but it does not bark on uh, his master. He barks only on the stranger. But again, that could be said to nurture, right? Okay, that is the nature effect. That because he is being trained, so he does not bark over there. But if his master is in trouble, he would bark even at his master. Oh, something is missing. He would remind the master. So that is the nurture part. But impulse ka, I think, because of this thing, the rat example is perfect, because if the rat is impulsive, he would probably enter the trap without even thinking. But if the rat over the period of time have understood that this is a trap, because we do not kill the rats, right? We trap the rat, and then usually, I mean, I'm just saying, at least in our household, we used to release him in the open. So now the next time the rat would understand, oh, this is a trap, I should not get caught. So in a way, he's controlling his impulse, right?
yeah, I'm just uh, parroting what I'd read. Maybe there is updated information about this which I'm not aware of. So, but I forgot the point I was going to make with this animal tendencies thing. Uh, I can't remember anymore.
Sorry, sorry.
No, 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 it's not your thing. I happen to forget. I didn't write any of this down, so that's why I'm having a confusing time today. Hmm, trying to remember, is there anything else to be talked about in the film? Yeah, we didn't discuss this typewriter girl, right? She goes to the cinema almost every day, and in the beginning of the movie, they say that people don't treat her well, and even at the canteen, she gets rotten food, and uh, then she's ready to marry the first person she finds with a steady income who shows interest in her. Was there some significance for her being there? Because if she was brought on back into the story in a more significant role, then there must be something important about this character, right? But I'm struggling to understand what it could be. So I'm asking a question for which I don't have an answer.
Actually, if you see, The Apprentice was actually first time introduced in the same theater, watching the same typewriter. But at that time, we didn't knew, or maybe I didn't notice that. Okay, I think that time the apprentice was not established, that he is the apprentice of the doctor. And then later on, it is showcased that the apprentice is actually having feelings for the typewriter in the movie theater. There is also a sequence where they both exchange looks and stuff happens, and then the woman leaves the theater without uh, I mean, without communicating with the apprentice of the doctor. So I think that is something over there. And the reason why he gets angry that okay, I will call daily, and if something happens, I would be the first one to shoot you. That is probably the first time that he talks. Before that, he was always like, I would discipline you, I would discipline you. But this is the first time that he says that I would kill you. I think that was again something like, again, this is a very lame thing. That romantic interest for another character to pivot the role. But I think that would have been a very, like, that is a very good reason for pushing the apprentice to finally think about murdering this human dog human, because now this person is basically threatening someone for whom he already has feelings.
Yeah, she's a romantic interest for the apprentice, not for the dog person, right? The dog person is, you know, sees her and immediately asks her to get married on the same day. Whereas this guy, he's been, I don't know if stalking is the word, but yeah, you can see him interact with her a few times, and but nothing is established
Okay,
from.
so this is
This
something
is
that
one
talking would
deviation
be
from
like
the book, actually.
actively, going all the way towards where she lives, where she works, and getting all the information. So I think stalking is a very huge word for this thing. But he knows that okay, if I want to watch the woman, or if I want to approach her, this is the place where I can do, and he doesn't misses this thing. I think it's more of like how you know where your crush is going to be, so you conveniently, make sure that you are over there to meet your crush accidentally, stuff sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, stalking sounds too harsh of a word, in my opinion.
I don't know if you were saying something.
Yeah, this part is actually a departure from the source material. In the novella, there is no encounter between the apprentice and the typist before this document brings her into the apartment. So this is a departure from the book. So, like Kavella said, I think that's the main reason to give the Blumenthal or the apprentice more motivation to, try to actually kill Philip Poligrapovich.
Okay. Uh,
By the way, I love that joke they made with his names and others' names. Was there someone called Barricade and something? That was really hilarious, and turns out that was actually a kind of a trend in naming in that time, where they used to give them revolutionary names.
Poligrapovich.
yeah, there's
Poly.
multiple name-related jokes. While I mean, I looked up the film later on after watching it today, and I mean, on the wiki, it's quite loud and clear that the the name, the Sharikov name, it that means little ball, like in a lovingly manner for someone who's kind of on the chubby side, and the
Golumolu.
I, yeah, something like that. But the dog is starving in the beginning,
Yeah.
so and there's quite a few jokes like this which
Yeah,
flew over because we don't. Yeah,
even the dog jokes about it. Na, he says, "How? Why does she call me by that name when I clearly am not struggling? When I clearly do not have any pedigree and I'm struggling for food."
I just remembered one last thing to talk about, and then we can wrap up. Is that, or unless you guys have anything to bring up, obviously you're welcome. I remember there is this. The film ends with the dog sleeping in front of the desk, right? So in a way, he's become a pet animal again, and their frustration is the two doctors' frustration is that he's not what they want him to be. He's become his own person. He's got his own identity, thoughts, and opinions and motivations. Whereas as a dog, he eats, he sleeps, and does what he's told to do. So that was interesting. That a lot of their frustrations is based around the fact that he's not obedient anymore. Kritik, were you trying to say something?
No, but there is an interesting thing about, again, control over other people, and there's that trying to control your creation, and obviously there's can't help but see a kind of parent-child kind of thing. But
The breaking point is when the dog has the control over these people to kick them out.
I don't understand that part.
Sorry. The dog has drafted some letter with evidence that these people
Ah,
are counter-revolutionaries and they need to be evicted from this apartment. And it seems that they're waiting to get approval from this dog person before going ahead with the process. That's when he goes missing and turns back into a dog again. So the doctors reach their breaking point when the dog has the upper hand of power against them.
But yeah, there is quite a lot of now that you mention it, there is quite a lot of importance placed upon the home and the personal space, and how they maintain, at least how the doctor continues to maintain his lifestyle in his home, calling each other monsieur and whatnot. And in fact, he says, even the polygraph, which he does mention, you guys are still living as though you're under the SARS rule, and they're kind of, maintaining their tradition within the house, and they're kind of desperately trying to protect it and not let outsiders come in. But yeah, I'm sorry if I digressed.
That's the basis of conservative ideology, right? There's the whole reason it's called right wing and left wing. Maybe you already know, right? With the French Revolution, when the French Revolution happened, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong here. That when they took over the palaces and were about to go ahead with decapitation of these royals, they had a meeting and the house was divided into two sections. Uh, Wing in a palace hallway being, the left, the giant courtroom or giant, I forgot what it's called, but yeah. So one left side was the left wing, right side was the right wing. They just happened to stand there, and the left was in the favor of uh, revolution, and right was in favor of preserving the monarchy. And yeah, preservation of culture and sticking to older lifestyle or uh, older beliefs as such is one of the founding aspects of conservative ideology, if I'm not wrong. Am I
That's
wrong?
interesting. I didn't know about that, actually.
Yeah, that's right, actually. So after that, also in the actual legislative assembly, they began sitting like that. And on the left, what do they call it? There's a term for it. Anyways, left of the aisle, the revolutionaries used to sit, and the right of the aisle, the conservatives used to sit.
By the way, Vivek, the breaking point was not that letter of the complaint, but rather this dogman pulling a pistol on them with the intention of maybe shooting or killing them. I think that was the breaking point. If he had not pull out the pistol, because see, the doctor himself has said a lot of times that it is not the terror using which you can reform. It is always the love and kindness with which you can, make people understand what you want them to understand. So I do not think that the doctor, who is inherently a non-violent person who believes in this type of non-violence, would have actually approved this thing. Like, again, taking away his, whatever you want to call it, his humanity or something like that. So I think it was when he pulled out the gun with the intention of maybe killing them or maybe just to threaten them. It was at that point that he said, okay, now he's becoming a dangerous threat, physical threat, and now he needs to be neutralized.
Aruna, are you trying to say something?
No, I kind of agree with that as well. Yeah,
Okay.
it's how easy it's, the step from killing cats, officially killing cats under the sanction of the state, to pointing guns at people and denunciating people for petty personal gains. It's just so easy, right? So that's how I read it as well.
But
And
this
yeah,
non-violent doctor person also, out of frustration and anger, also says, next time this guy comes, I'm going to kill him or something like that, right?
yeah. But he won't actually do it. I mean, his
Yeah,
views are
yeah.
pretty clearly spelled out, right? He always says that the only possible method of dealing with the living creature is kindness. You can't use terror. You can't use coercion. It's kindness.
And I mean, just to be devil's advocate again, in the case of the dog, he's threatened multiple times with being shot at or being killed to death or being strangled to death. And in one case, they do strangle him to basically fainting, almost fainting point.
Mm,
So
mm,
from the dog's perspective, they are a real life threat to his life. They might actually go ahead with killing him.
mm.
So him brandishing a gun, you could argue it is self-preservation for him, because maybe he doesn't fully understand the idea of saying that I'll kill you and actually killing someone.
I think that is the reason he always say कि if you terrorize someone, you are basically not making them understand or watching your perspective, but rather you are polarizing them more into some other thing. And that is exactly was what his assistant did, right? His apprentice did by strangling the dog. And obviously, if once you have been attacked, what is then it becomes very risky thing to not have any type of thing. You always need an insurance that something like that will not happen to you again. So yeah, I agree with that point of yours. Though it might, I mean, it's not devil's advocacy, in my opinion. Obviously, if you have been threatened once and physically strangled once, you would definitely opt for something to save yourself. Yeah, I do not see that as a wrong thing to do per se. Yeah, but taking out the gun when it was not necessary, then that is again a different.
All right, I have no other topics to raise. If there are anything to say or anything you guys want to discuss, bring it up, or we can
Just
go
just
ahead.
ending thoughts with that point that Cavalier made.
Sure.
That's pretty much it. That's what what I think Bulgakov wants to bring out in the book as well. That's what comes out of it. That's the defining thought or trait of the book, right? That particular respect for manners, for culture, for etiquette, for civility, kindness. That those are the things that he sees as essentials of being human, right? And that's what puts him in conflict uh, with the Soviet state at that point of time, which kind of believed in intimidation and terror as a way of governing and existing. So that's the whole thing. That's the overarching theme of the whole thing.
Also, one thing that did not grow old was do not read newspaper. That is so apt. I mean, the more you read newspaper, the more depressing the things get.
He said, "Do not read Soviet newspapers."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, because
He
he is
said
in Soviet Union at that particular moment of time, right?
imported newspapers are okay, but local
Pravda.
newspapers don't read.
And Soviet newspaper was only one, that was Pravda, the party newspaper. So he says if you care about your digestion, don't talk about Bolshevism or never read Soviet newspapers before dinner.
I also like the monologues of the dog. Oh, why did he select me? Maybe I am handsome looking. Like those
Yeah.
funny parts. Those were really
Some
really good. I
grandmother
really
had
liked.
some affair with some Labrador and all that.
I really liked that aspect of the movie. I mean, if someone would make just that particular from the dog's monologue, his life, just like that, maybe a 5-10 minute shot
Hmm.
and some additional material, like okay, this is what happens to me. This is like a slice of life sort of thing for this particular dog. It would I would really like to watch it.
Yeah, that
With
that was the
obviously,
most.
obviously with the monologues, no? Not without the monologues. The monologues are the key.
Hmm. That was the most enjoyable part of the film for me as well. That was first 20 minutes or so from the point of view of the dog. Even the shots from the point of view of the dog, the monologues, everything. After that, it kind of went downhill for me.
Arey, you remember that one dialogue was there? The collar. This is the briefcase.
Yeah.
This is what every dog strives to get. It sort of was also a joke on capitalism, right? Like award or anything like that. Like everybody chases in capitalism. Everybody chases stuff like that. So it's not just those particular thing which with the monologues the doctor talks down a lot of communist ideas which are not 100% you know foolproof, but at the same time he also takes jab on the capitalism with this sort of thing, but it's hidden.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like, I'm, uh, I can't imagine I'm agreeing with Stalin here, but yeah, Bulgakov is too great a writer to be put into categories like left or right.
The documentary we featured, was it last week or the week before that? I don't remember. Last Oasis. That kind of does this, right? It gives the voiceover about every single animal, and uh, it talks from the animal's perspective sometimes here and there. Kavali, I think you saw it, right? Last Oasis.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
took me a lot more time
Yeah.
because the I had to go back again and again. With
Hmm.
humans it becomes so much easier, na? Because there is also emotions, and sometimes even if you miss a part of the subtitle, you can just make it out. But with animals it becomes a little bit tough to so that's why it was a little bit, I won't say. I mean, obviously, it was a very good movie to watch. It was something different, and once in a while, watching something different actually helps you a lot to, improve your horizons and all those things, broaden your horizon. Sorry, but yeah, I really liked it, but it was a little bit painful for me to rewind it again and again and again, to just read the subtitles and go back and then watch the scene again. So it was like I'm watching the scene, then I'm rewinding, I'm reading the subtitles. Sometimes I had to rewind twice or thrice to read the subtitles completely, and then I am again watching the scene to refresh. Oh, this is what is happening in this. So that was a completely different experience on its own.
Did you have trouble watching this film with subtitles?
No. This one was comparatively easier. I
Okay.
mean, I just had to rewind like 3 or 4 times only.
Oh, okay. That's why you didn't come to the screening, is it? Because you wanted to watch it at your own pace.
Yeah. Sometimes,
Okay.
I mean, if it is English language or Hindi language, then I do not have any issue.
Hmm.
But if it is something I'm not familiar with the audio of a particular language, then it's better if I'm going to rely on subtitles. It's better to watch it alone.
Okay. I think we can end the live stream, right? So thanks to all the YouTube listeners who are listening to us for 2 hours. I can't imagine sitting through our discussion for so long, but thank you for doing that. So I'll just end the stream and I'll be back.